Hello, and welcome to a series of videos that I intend to create in order to refresh your memory about some of the topics that you have covered in previous math classes. We have a new series that we're starting in math class this year called Math in Focus, Singapore Math. Now, we're doing this series because Singapore is a country who, over the last several years, maybe 10 years, has really increased their scores in international math tests and studies. So we believe that this is a good direction for us to take. So let's start with the first video, which is going to help you recall your prior knowledge, is what the book calls it. I'm going to do a series of 5 videos for Chapter 1, and they are recognizing types of numbers, comparing decimals, rounding numbers, finding squares, cubes, square roots, and cubed roots, and determining absolute value. So let's get started with the first section that we're going to cover, recognizing types of numbers. Well, the 4 types of numbers that you've been exposed to in the past are whole numbers, negative numbers, fractions, and decimals. So the first thing that we kind of want to make sure you're okay with are just recognizing them, knowing what they are, knowing where they kind of live on a number line. Whole numbers, think of, 1, 2, 3, nothing with a decimal, nothing with a fraction. And all whole numbers have a place on a number line, which starts with 0 and moves forward up to infinity. And those are the most common numbers. You've been dealing with them since kindergarten, so that won't be a surprise. Negative numbers was something that you probably started a year or maybe 2 ago. And that's just a realization that numbers also live on the left-hand side of 0. So anything that is less than 0, we consider a negative number. For example, if it was, December 20th and it was 5 degrees outside, really cold, and the weather forecast for the next day was that it was going to be 10 degrees colder than it is today. Well, that temperature would be negative 5 degrees colder than 0. So negative numbers also live on the number line, again, on the left-hand side of 0. Fractions, we're not talking addition subtraction yet, just recognizing what a fraction is. There's a numerator and a denominator, and all fractions occur between 0 and 1 on a number line. So they're all less than 1. All fractions live in that space between 0 and 1. Same thing would be true of a negative fraction. They would live to the left of 0 and negative 1. So fractions are smaller than whole numbers. And again, they have a place on a number line. And then the last type of number that we're going to cover is a decimal. Now, fractions and decimals can be very similar, because a decimal, again, lives between 0 and 1. But instead of looking like a numerator on top of a denominator, a decimal is represented using a decimal point, a little period between the number. So if you have 0.25 or 25 hundredths, that's a decimal, and that lives 1/4 of the way from 0 to 1. And then the same thing would be true with negative decimals. You could have negative 0.5, say, negative 5/10, and that would be exactly halfway between 0 and negative 1. So those are the 4 types of numbers that we expect that you're going to be able to recognize. I hope this helps in beginning Chapter 1. Thank you.